Hello, and welcome back to The Conversation Piece with your host, Akila. I can't roll my R's to save my life. You'll understand in a minute. In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. We've all heard it, almost like a jingle. Well, we'll remix it. 1492, Pedro Alonso NINO navigated the ocean blue. He was the brother who piloted the Santa Maria. He had two other brothers, also sailors, and one was in charge of La Nina. Did you see that coming? Pedro Alonso NINO was of mixed heritage, African and Spaniard. He was also called El Negro. He was with Columbus on his voyages to America. Wanting to acquire some riches for himself, and why not? Everyone else was doing it. He set out to explore the West Indies on his own, but there were some expectations. He had to avoid land already founded, quote-unquote, by Columbus. Not to be petty, I am using the word founded loosely. It's kind of hard to claim land that already have people there, but I digress. The Council of Castile wanted their exploiters to seek out new countries, but Pedro also had to agree to pay the Spanish crown 20% of the profits. When he set sail in 1499, he was joined by brothers Luis and Cristobal de la Guerra. One of them R's again. Them R's. Their travels saw them trading trinkets of little value in exchange for pearls before they happened upon salt mines in Punta Araya, immediately striking them wealth. He returned to Spain a few months later, a wealthier man than he left, but upon his return, he and the brothers found themselves in trouble with the crown. As King Ferdinand II accused him of theft, he thought Pedro was cheating him out of his 20%. Pedro found himself arrested and his property seized, but according to different sources, some have him not living out to see the end of his trial. Another has him being exonerated on all charges and living out the rest of his life a newly famous and rich man. But either way, Pedro sailed and carved out new territories for Spain. A happy accident, as remember, they were headed to India, but ended up shaping the trajectory of the Americas forever.
I was wondering about our yesterdays and digging through the rubble, and to say the least, somebody went to a hell of a lot of trouble to make sure that when we looked things up, we wouldn't fare too well, and we would come up with totally unreliable pictures of ourselves. But I've compiled what few facts I could, such as they are, to see if we could find out a little bit of something, and this is what I got so far. First, white folks discovered Africa. They claimed it fair and square. Cecil Rhodes couldn't have been robbing nobody because, hell, there wasn't nobody there. And white folks brought all the civilization because there wasn't none around. How could the folks be civilized when wasn't nobody writing nothing down? And just to prove all of their suspicions, well, didn't take too long. They found out that there were whole tribes of people in plain sight running around with no clothes on. That's right. The men, the women, the young, and the old righteous folks covered their eyes. And no time was spent considering the environment. Hell no, this just wasn't civilized. And another piece of information they had, or at least this is what we were taught, is that unlike the civilized people of Europe, these tribal units actually fought. And yes, there was some crude implements, and yes, there was primitive art, and yes, they were masters of hunting and fishing, and courtesy came from the heart. And yes, there was love and medicine, religion, intertribal communication by drum, but no paper, no pencils, and no other utensils, and hell, these folks never even heard of a gun. And this is why the colonies came, to stabilize the land, because the dark continent had copper and gold, and the discoverers had themselves a plan. They would discover all the places with promise. You didn't need no titles and deeds. Then they would appoint people to make everything legal, to sanction the trickery and greed. And back in the jungle, when the natives got restless, they would call it guerrilla attack. And they would never describe that the folks finally got wise and decided that they would fight back. And still, we are victims of word games. Semantics is always a bitch. Places once referred to as underdeveloped are now called mineral rich. And the game goes on eternally. Unity kept just beyond reach. Egypt and Libya used to be in Africa. They've now been moved to the Middle East. There are examples galore, I assure you. But if interpreting were left up to me, I'd be sure every time folks knew this version wasn't mine, which is why it is called his story.
Hey yo, I know you heard of Spotify, right? It's free to download, and your girl's on there. That's right. So download, search the Conversation Piece Podcast with Aquila, and hit follow. It's that simple. Thank you again for tuning in to another episode of the Conversation Piece Podcast. I am your humble host, Aquila, requesting that you join me again. So, until then, be safe, love, and value yourself so that you can love and value others. I bid you adieu with the greeting, Assalamu alaikum, peace be with you.